Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the very first episode of Hold My Protein, Watch This.
So we're going to talk about trying to be healthy, but still exist in a world that seems to be constantly fighting us on our journey to being healthy.
As I eat spectacular cinnamon raisin toast, it's really, really good.
And I'm hydrating. It's all about the balance.
It is all about balance. So I'm Dr. Meghan Rohde. This is my lovely business partner.
I'm Dr. Leah Makovsky.
And we are the owners of Revolution Wellness Collective. And today we're going to talk a little bit about our own fitness journey so you can kind of get to know us. And then each podcast, our goal is to kind of pick something that's, I don't know, maybe like a social taboo or like fitness lies that you've been told, and try to give you some science and some real life and just, I don't know, help you find balance.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it really is all about just the balance and the trade-offs. You know, it's not about being perfect all the time as much as it is being generally good, generally most of the time.
But I really like being perfect.
We all do. And I think one really common misconception is if you work in fitness or if you look fit, like it's just easier for you. And you know, it's not. It's more just that maybe we failed more, we're able to fail more effectively, but it's definitely still challenging. It's still really challenging. So we wanted to just talk about kind of our fitness journeys and all the mistakes we've made along the way, because there are many. There's been plenty. I'm not going to go so far as to say we've made all of them, because we made close.
Yeah, I think
we may have made all of them. You never
know. So Leah,
we'll
start with you.
Okay.
How did you, like, growing up?
Yeah.
Did you come from an active family? Like, was exercise something that was just ingrained in you from a young age? I'm gonna eat my toast when you answer that question.
So my parents were definitely active. You know, they walked a lot. They liked to ski. You know, they didn't necessarily have maybe the most scientifically accurate sense of fitness and nutrition, but they certainly tried. And so I think, you know, I kind of grew up at least trying to be active, trying to be healthy, trying to make good choices, and what that means has definitely changed a lot now versus then. But I think I grew up that way. And then I was lucky that I always had friends who did sports. So I would do sports to want to hang out with them, because that was just kind of what we did. So that helped a lot on my end in terms of just being in the habit of being active. Like, I don't remember the last time I wasn't enrolled in some form of sport.
I love that. We're trying to do that with our son right now too. He's 6, and that was really similar to how I grew up. Like, my parents, my dad played college football. He was in the Army. He was a wrestler, so he was very, very active. My mom was a college gymnast, also very, very active. But it's interesting, when I came along, I don't know what, it's hard to say like what changed for them, because I remember like going for bike rides, skiing. I've been skiing since I was like 2. There's a picture of me somewhere like in my car seat as a toddler with a pair of skis next to me, which is kind of cool. And then they would put me in like every single sport that they possibly could. But the caveat with that was that I had to finish the season. So even if I didn't like it, I had to finish, which I think was a very valuable lesson. But it's interesting. So I'm curious, as your parents have aged, because as my parents have aged, their activity level has just plummeted and they don't do much at all anymore.
So my parents' activity level has actually gone up, I think.
Oh, that's cool.
During COVID, they were really afraid of doing things indoors, but they had also just retired, so they wanted to see their friends, they wanted to do stuff. So they really took on like hiking all like summer and spring, and then like snowshoeing all winter. So they've actually been, I think, more active, which I think has helped them age, because they're 73. So that's, you know, they're on the older side of things. And I think the fact that they stay really active and that their house just has so many stairs, it like kind of just keeps them moving.
That's awesome. I love that. So how, now that we kind of talked about how we both grew up, for you and your fitness journey, how did that manifest itself once you like left the nest and got out on your own?
So I think once I left the nest, it was harder for me because I kind of left my small community and realized, I'm actually really average. Like I went from being a varsity athlete to being like a back of the pack athlete. And I think I just wasn't emotionally prepared for that. Because I think paired with that, I now no longer really had like a team for the first time ever. So I started marathon running with my friend because my college did like a little charity run, and we weren't an official charity, so it's not like we had to raise thousands of dollars like you do for a real charity. You just had to raise like $200, and they busted to the start line of Boston Marathon.
What?
And
so you've done Boston?
I've done Boston twice.
What?
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Slowly.
It doesn't matter. That's Boston.
Yeah.
Go Leah.
Go Leah. So, and Boston College has a huge like running culture because it's right at the top of the biggest hill.
Heartbreak Hill.
Heartbreak Hill.
Yeah.
So it was a really cool environment to train in because Sunday is like a long run day for the running community. And so a lot of people would run along the route, and people who lived on the route would just sit out on their yards on Sunday mornings with like snacks.
Oh, and that's so cool.
It's not very stranger danger appropriate. So I totally go up to these random people and be like, "Oh yeah, thanks for the snack, mister. I just met you. Like, this is great.
I hope this is not laced with cyanide. Also, thank you.
Thank you." But I think along with that also kind of came just like more body image and more eating issues. I think combined with being a college student, having more exposure to different foods, being in a hugely eating disordered culture. I don't know if maybe everyone's undergrad was like that, but I remember it was really common if you're borrowing someone's clothes, they'd be like, this belongs to someone they're really overweight. It's probably not going to fit you. And then you get it, and I'd be like, I can't even fit my arm.
Isn't it crazy? Oh my gosh. Okay, so sidebar.
Yeah.
Words mean something. So, and I agree with you 100%. I think like the borrowing of clothes as like a teenager and a college student is almost like a rite of passage. And it's almost like this, it's like this unwritten, and it's, I can't even say unwritten girl code because it happens with boys too. It's like this unwritten code that like, here's how I'm going to show you that we're friends because we're going to like borrow each other's stuff. And I had that happen all the time with my friends. And this was starting in like high school. I started lifting weights when I was 13. So like, for those of you listening, your girl over here has never had a thigh gap. And I went to high school and college in the late 90s when you were supposed to have a thigh gap. So I was like the fit girl, which now I'm like, hell yeah, I'm the fit girl, sort of. But back then, my friends would let me borrow something, and it was that like fear, right? Like I'm in your room, in your dorm room, trying to put on these jeans, and I literally can't get them over my quads.
Yeah,
they're not budging. And then that look that you would get from friends, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
it's like the
how do I?
Yeah. Thanks for that. So, but those words, like, this probably isn't going to fit you. Now, I will be 44 in a month. When I go shopping, if I look at something, I have to like filter through that message that I've been receiving for the last, 25 years. Like, oh, that's cute. So it's probably not going to fit me.
Yeah.
Bitches. Oh my gosh. Well, so my journey was similar in terms of running. So I like went to college and I was swimming. And then I ended up kind of switching roles, and I was on the athletic training side. So I started taking care of athletes, but I always worked with male athletes. So I wasn't like in the thick of female athletes for a while, but still like trying to kind of navigate my own stuff. I completely stopped exercising though. And I did not gain the freshman 15. I gained like the freshman 45. So at my heaviest, I weighed 185 pounds. And I really feel like that happened like overnight. I went to get dressed for class and like couldn't get my jeans on. And in my head, I was like, these things fit yesterday.
Yeah.
What's happening here? But I was like eating out all the time and drinking a lot and like just I didn't really think anything of it. And then it was like, oh, all of a sudden I'm almost 200 pounds if I'm not careful. This is not good. This is not healthy. And I knew that I wanted to go to either medical school or PT school. And so then I was like, okay, I have to do something about this. So I started running. So it's interesting that we both had like running backgrounds.
Yeah.
Before we got into weight training as heavy as we are. But it's interesting because I think because I was heavy in terms of my body image, I still see that sometimes. And I am like nowhere near that now. But I have to work really, really hard to like undo that visual of me being overweight before I really got serious about just taking care of myself.
And I think it's hard too, because with the internet, you're always seeing pictures of these super edited people who may or may not also be on drugs. And they look perfect. And then you look down, you're like, what the hell?
Right.
And I think it's easy to lose sight of what a normal person, what a normal healthy person who is not a professional athlete, who is not on drugs, looks like.
Yeah.
And I think that makes it harder
for sure
to kind of be realistic of, okay, like what does healthy look like? What is healthy for me when you see, all these beautifully shredded people out there?
So that makes me think of like my experience in competitive CrossFit and competitive weightlifting. Because I reached a really pretty high level in both of those. Like I was competing, at, I guess I would say on an international stage within CrossFit with Legends. Because that's, Legends now has taken over Masters CrossFit Games. So it's like all Masters athletes from across the world. And then with Olympic weightlifting, I've competed at the American Open and podiumed, and I would get to these events and like know that I had put in the work, know that I had been probably overzealous with my nutrition. Remind me to tell you the rice story. It's pretty funny. And I would look at these women as we were all checking in and look at them and be like, what am I doing here? I don't look like this. Like I am faking this like crazy. I am not good enough to be here. And those thoughts can completely derail your mental preparedness for any kind of competition like that. And so I remember when I went to Legends, and there are like longtime games athletes at Legends, and I'm looking around and I'm like, my abs don't look like that. My arms don't look like that. My butt doesn't look like that. And I'm just like beating the shit out of myself the whole time. And then about 4 or 5 days later, there was a professional photographer there, and they had sent the link to all of the like photos from the weekend. And first of all, I finished 15th out of 40 people in the world. That's really freaking good. Like I was crying. I was so happy with that. So there's that. But then I got this link to those pictures, and I realized like how hard on myself I was being, because I did look like those women. And I had just wasted so much mental energy picking that apart. So let's talk a little bit about that. Like, have you struggled with that as well in your like fitnessing?
I think definitely. I don't know that I realized it actively when I was younger, but at some point with marathon running, I was like, I'm not happy with how I look, and I'm tired of just running all the time. So I'm going to get into bodybuilding, and then that will be how I will be happy with how I look. And then I'll be happy and I'll be perfect, and I'll have all these friends, and I'll have like 12 boyfriends.
12, huh?
Yeah.
Girl, that's a lot of dick.
We're going to have to mark this podcast as censored.
This is not like, actually, we probably should have said at the beginning, like, maybe don't listen to this in front of your kids, or, give them a warning.
Give them a warning. And so I got into bodybuilding. And so, I was doing the whole weighing and tracking everything I eat, not going out to eat. Like, the whole, I'm just gonna take pictures of myself every week, weigh in every week, like not go out if I can't look at the macros ahead of time and figure out how to fit it into my day.
God, that's exhausting, isn't it?
And it's exhausting. And I can't say I got 12 boyfriends out of it, or I got any happier, or I even looked that good. Like, I just looked like I needed to eat. And like, I didn't get my period for a year and a half. So like, it's not like it was healthy for me either, but I didn't see any of that. I just kept thinking, if I can change how I look enough, then I will change my life. And that's not really how that works for anyone.
So I was reading about this yesterday morning. And there's like the difference between happiness and content. And what I was reading about was that we can find things that like transiently make us happy, or we can think like, almost like this happiness timeline. Like if I can achieve this goal, or if I can just get to this next stage in my life, like for us as business owners right now, it's a lot like, if we can get one more client in the door, if we can, sell a fitness membership, will that, and I caught myself thinking this, I was like, oh yeah, that's totally what I've been doing. Like, oh, this will make me happy. It does, but then it goes away, like you said. And when you look back on it over time, it actually didn't even really make you happy. It was just an added source of stress, and you didn't even, like, by your own estimation, didn't even look that good.
No, absolutely not.
So how can we as women focus on contentment rather than comparison? Because I think that's what we're kind of trying to get at.
Yeah, kind of. I think our inspiration for our talk today was we've been hearing a lot of women just say, we don't like how we look, but we don't want to look bulky, we don't want to look big, we're afraid to go to the gym because we don't want to, look huge. And we've had people say they don't want to look like us, and that's fine. We're not offended. We really aren't. I promise.
Actually, I'm gonna say, and for my dear friend, if you happen to listen to this, you're gonna laugh. I had a friend a long time ago who I would program for, and I would drag her with me to CrossFit. And she would straight up just not want to do any upper body stuff. And she would look at me and she would say, no offense, which, Will Ferrell and whatever the guy's name is, that's Ricky Bobby, like, in that movie where he says, if you preface it with all due respect, then it's not
it's not very respectful.
It's not very respectful. So like, it was kind of like that a little bit, like, with all due respect, it's cool for you, but not for me. And I don't want my arms to look like yours. And for those of you listening, if you've ever seen me or pictures of me, I have arms that are probably bigger than some men, and that's cool because I could probably put those bros over my head. And that's fine too. Maybe they should eat more. But I laughed because I was like, this is not like, you are not going to go to CrossFit and work on your strict press and then do some dumbbell snatches and miraculously walk out of the gym with arms like mine.
No.
This is, I don't know, over 20 years of heavy weightlifting.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot. It takes a lot to get to this point. And is it hard to find jackets? Yes. Do I have Chris Farley, fat guy in a little coat moments? 100%. But where I finally end up getting is, would I rather fit into a jacket or be crazy strong? And I would rather be crazy strong. And that's me.
Yeah. And I think that's where it can be challenging in sort of the body image, happiness, contentment issue, is that it's hard to hold space for, I am a good human being, and also I don't look or I don't perform the way that I want. And I think until you can learn that your value isn't defined by how you look or how you perform, you're always going to be stuck in that comparison.
I didn't know you were going to dive in on that shit.
Like, you opened the door. Like, what
did I?
What was I supposed to say next?
I mean, that was good. So let's just,
let's just delete
like the barn. No, that barn door is open. We're just going to dive into that. So, this is, I am cringy right now because literally my whole life has been about performance.
Mm-hmm.
And, starting from when I was a kid and I was playing sports, and I remember I was a catcher in softball, and well, I wouldn't say really good at it. I was good at it.
Mm-hmm.
Also a reason why my legs are still this size, because I've literally been in a squat since I was 9.
Excellent.
And so I I would be in the car with my parents on the way home, and my dad, so keep in mind, my dad is, former college athlete, 35 years military, kind of hard ass, like super sweet, but kind of hard ass. And he would say, well, how did you think that went? And I'd tell him, and he would say, well, what could you have done better? And I don't know why I would take that question and internalize it to what I did wasn't good enough. And then he would say, well, did you do your best? And I remember thinking, well, if you just asked me what I could have done better, then did I do my best? Probably not. Like, if there's room for improvement, if there's stuff that I could have done better, then that obviously is not my best. And that became my internal dialogue, which is why I now have 4 degrees and have been chasing athletic pursuits ever since, because I'm like, again, to go back to what we were talking about earlier with happiness versus contentment, like I've been just chasing like the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, because I had tied up my worth as a person in my performance. And so like, if I wasn't, and I remember my first PT job, right? Like, we both used to work in outpatient orthopedics for other people. And how are you measured as a physical therapist in outpatient orthopedics?
How much you bill?
How much do you bill? What's your productivity? How many units are you billing, from one day or from one week to the next? So every month we would have these staff meetings, and everybody's billing would get like pasted up on, and I'm looking for my name, and I'm like, oh, I'm second. I got to get more people in. I gotta keep them longer. Like, how do I get to be first? Because somehow also my worth as a physical therapist became tied up in my billing, which is an absolute, just like, that's ridiculous. So how I ended up changing that, I am shocked that we're diving this deep, like right off the boat, but I guess this is how we're going to go. I had to learn how to reparent myself.
Yeah.
So words have meaning and words stick with you. And so I spent a lot of time trying to, like, I guess, discover little Megan, like 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old Meghan that needed a parent after an athletic event or an exam or something like that, to just say, I'm really proud of how you did, or I liked how you did X, Y, and Z, rather than tying it to my performance then means that you love me. And I don't do great every day.
No.
And there are days like today. I did a 5K row time trial. What was the first thing I asked you when I peeled myself up off the floor and I could breathe?
What was a good time?
What was a good time? Did I do my best? I sure did, because I couldn't feel my legs when I got done. So yeah, I did my best, but I think what we need to remember is that our best is going to change from one day to the next.
Yeah.
So sleep, stress, nutrition, schedule, life, like, it's never the same. And so, could I have done better today? Maybe, under different circumstances, but did I do my best based on where I am and like what's going on in my life? 100%. And as early as 2 years ago, I could not have said that.
Yeah. And it's really challenging, I think, to understand, internally, what we're even tying our value to in the first place, and then how to process kind of these two opposing things that, you're probably not the best at everything. And,
it's really disappointing.
Not ever going to be, no offense. But how do we be proud of ourselves when we also know we could do better? But also we tried our best, and kind of understanding that confusing jumble of emotions kind of tied around. Well, you did your best. Is there someone faster? Yes. But does that make your time bad? Also, no. And like those are complete opposites in the brain, and it's hard to just hard to sit with that a lot of the time.
I think it's hard to sit with it, but I think we can all take a cue from the Olympics this summer, especially women's gymnastics.
Yeah.
So, you know, you've got like Team USA, Simone Biles, and it's escaping me I guess it was Jordan, who was supposed to get third. And like, Jordan, if you listen to this, I'm very sorry that happened to you. But the gymnast from Brazil won the golds.
Yeah.
And that picture of the three of them, like with the two United States gymnasts, like bowing down to the Brazilian gymnast, I thought was really, really cool, because that's one of the first displays that I've seen in my lifetime in women's sports where women were truly like proud of one another and building each other up. I think so much we subconsciously and very, very consciously compete with each other and compare, you know, just like, you know, you were comparing yourself to the other runners in your group when you were in college, and I'm comparing myself to CrossFit athletes. Quite frankly, Leah and I work out together a lot, and I have to catch myself comparing myself to Leah, who is 13 years younger than me. And I bet when I was 13 years younger, my ass was a little bit higher too. She's got a great butt. Well, thank you. But I got to look at it every day. And I'm like, So, but watching those women then defend that picture and say, like, we were really proud of her. These are literally the best gymnasts in the world, like 1, 2, and 3. And did Simone Biles walk off that podium and think, how could I have done better? Probably so, because I think that's when you are an athlete or when you are a driven person, that self-reflection always needs to be there, but you have to have it along with self-worth and also being really proud of yourself for your accomplishment. Like,
yeah. And I think it is good to have that conversation with yourself of how can I do better, because that's how you improve. So you need to be able to ask yourself that, but then you need to be able to answer that in a productive way instead of just kind of doom spiraling into, I'm the biggest loser, most worthless piece of human ever. And I think us humans just really like black and white because it's easy. It's easy to say I'm good or I'm bad. And it's more complicated to think, you know, I am good, but I can be better, but that doesn't make me bad.
I like that. All or nothing thinking is really hard. And I think that being okay in that gray area, I don't know that society gives us a lot of space for that, but it's interesting because I think a shift is coming, because if you go into any social media post, like troll comments are great. I'm grateful that we haven't had many on ours. We also don't have like a shit ton of followers, so you know, I'm sure it's coming at some point.
I'm sure.
And I will celebrate our first troll because that means somebody's thinking about us. But I think that it's so easy for people to have an opinion about what somebody else is doing, because it means that you don't have to think about what you're doing. Like you get to talk shit about somebody else without thinking about how you could do something different. So there's a woman that I follow in the UK, and I love her post. She's a CrossFit athlete. She just had a baby, and she is in recovery for an eating disorder. And so she has these videos of when she, you know, was at the peak of her eating disorder in CrossFit, and she looks like an average CrossFit woman. She went into recovery for her eating disorder and put on weight, which she desperately needed to do. She's crazy strong. Like, she is still doing things that she could do when she was at a lighter weight. And a lot of her posts now, she'll like remix one of her own videos and she'll put troll comments on there. And like, people are so mean. And you know, like You're literally commenting on this while you sit taking a shit in the bathroom scrolling on your phone.
Yeah.
Like, unless you are taking a shit in a CrossFit gym or a gym after you just finished working out, you can't say anything, bro.
No.
Like, come on, you just can't.
I think we learned about this too, just in being business owners. It's oftentimes easier to make yourself feel better by beating someone else up.
Yeah.
So I think that's just easier than doing all the self reflection needed to kind of understand the actual gray zones about valuing yourself.
Do you journal?
No.
Why not?
I just don't make time for it.
So it's not like you don't want to.
No.
Okay.
I will occasionally.
Okay. I wish I made more time for it too. But when I did it, I thought it was really great because I could identify and like get out some of these really nasty thoughts. Like we say things to ourselves that we would never say to our friends. Like the stuff I say to myself, I would never dream of saying to you.
Yeah, same.
Because I love you and that would like crazy hurt your feelings and I would be a giant asshole, right? Somehow that's acceptable to do to myself. Yeah. But I think in journaling, if we can get some of those ideas out of our heads and then look back at it over time, I think we start to identify patterns. And our brains, like, we're smart, but like, we're not that smart. Our brains make up shit that doesn't make sense all the time. All the time. And I think half the time the beliefs that we have are perhaps not even really our own.
No.
You know, like some of the things that in terms of comparison, I remember when I was a kid, my mom, like if we were out shopping, my mom would like point out a woman to my dad and ask him, is my butt as big as hers? And so that conditioned me to start looking at other people and like scrutinizing them. Like really bad habit. I have no business scrutinizing other people like by any means. But as a little girl, that made me then think, oh, well, maybe my butt shouldn't be big, or maybe I need to look a different way or a certain way. And that's just not true because my body is capable of doing so many awesome things.
Yeah.
And so then when I can reframe it into that, I think it's better. But it takes, for me, it took journaling and like really getting this stuff out and identifying those patterns to figure out what I was actually saying to myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we really don't know half the time what we say to ourselves. And I haven't been journaling, but I have been, I guess, using a fake it till I make it approach.
Okay.
So I think I wasn't I thought I had put in the work and done a really good job of having a positive sort of self-esteem. But then I was in PT a couple weeks ago, whatever. And they're asking me how I thought I was going to do in my meet. And I was like, well, I'm going to be last. I don't know why you're asking me that. And they're like, okay, well, like, what would you need to do to be first? And I was like, I'm always last. And they're just like, okay, well, what would you need to lift to be proud of yourself? And I kind of realized, nothing. I would literally never be proud of myself for anything that I've done. So I've been trying to do things that I would do if I were proud of myself. A little fake it till you make it, which doesn't work well. So like if I'm working out and I'm hot, I'll take my shirt off because it's like, if I were proud of myself, I would take my shirt off. Or if I'm posting on social media about a lift, I'll post the weight, even though I'm embarrassed about the weight. So I've been practicing doing things that I would do if I were proud of myself.
I love that. I think there's a lot of value in fake it till you make it. Also, I've seen you without a shirt on and it's quite glorious. So like more of that. Having also been your coach at said powerlifting meet, for our listeners, Leah, did you finish last?
I came in third out of 4.
So that was not last.
No.
It was not last. And how many PRs did you have in this meet?
I had a lot.
Yeah. Did you, correct me if I'm wrong, did you or did you not PR every single lift?
I think my openers were things I had done before, but second and third attempts were all PRs.
So you PR'd your bench, your deadlift, and your back squats on that day?
Yes.
ladies and gentlemen, we like to call that a win. So that's amazing. But at the same time, like while you were there and you were watching other women in your weight class, what were your thoughts?
I was, I think, still assuming that I would just be last.
Yeah. Um, and when you PR'd your squat by, I want to say almost 20 pounds,
like 30 pounds.
30 pounds. Yeah. Okay. What happened when we realized that you PR'd your squat?
I cried. It was embarrassing.
And we had a big hug.
I hate hugs.
Yeah, she doesn't like hugs. We're working on that. I'm gonna hug you when this podcast is over. It was amazing. Like I cried, Leah cried, we hugged each other. We need to find the photography that was there because I know she got a picture of all that. And like there were people coming up to us throughout the day after that saying like how cool it was to watch the athlete coach relationship. And then I really loved it because then I could say, well, yeah, I'm coaching her right now, but she's also my friend, my business partner. And like, for me, there was so much more wrapped up in that than it was just, I want Leah to PR her back squat, like months worth of work. And so, yeah, you did fake it till you make it, but you also put like, you didn't fake the work.
No, I think I faked being proud of the work.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. I can get behind that. So let's kind of bring this train home.
Yeah.
We've both been in fitness for a really long time. We were talking with a client this morning that like we've kind of seen it all at this point between the two of us, and we've probably done it all.
You've probably seen and done it all.
I'm going to share my tips for what I've learned about body image and consistency, and then you want to share yours?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, this might not be healthy, but in terms of body image, I will never be the worst looking person anywhere, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that to be judgmental to others, but I know that I put sunscreen on every day. I drink a lot of water. I take care of myself. I exercise regularly. Like those things, they're so simple. You can make pretty significant changes just by doing those things, right? So I have that. I also tend to, if I can catch myself when I'm starting to have these really negative spiraling thoughts about like picking myself apart, how much my body can do. So our son is 6. I grew a human. My body grew another human being really, really well. And that's amazing. I have been able to, I breastfed. So I was able to feed said human with a moderate degree of success. But, and this is not about like whether or not breastfeeding is best, like just feed your kid. I don't care how you feed your kid, just feed your kid and make it to where like both of you are getting what you need. So I try to remind myself all the cool things that my body has done. And then when it comes to consistency, I just keep it really, really simple. And so if I have food prepared, then I'm not going to eat like garbage. If I don't have food prepared, we're going to walk around the corner to the coffee shop and we're going to get a 2 egg and 2 sausage sandwich, which is fantastic, but not an everyday thing. Right. So if I want to be consistent, I have to plan. And sometimes that takes time, but the stress that I would end up feeling if I didn't plan isn't there anymore. So I try to talk to myself nicely. I plan to be successful, and I just do my best in everything to keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah. Those are all really good. And then I would say more from like I'm not going to say emotional side because I'm not a psychologist, but the thought process side. I think it just takes intentional practice. Like confidence and valuing yourself isn't going to come by accident. Like you're not going to wake up one day and be like, oh, what do you know? I love myself today. This is weird. Like you have to, practice, just say pick something and say, if if I was happy with myself,
Mhm.
or if I was satisfied with my body image, what is something that I would do?
Mhm.
You know, I kind of think back to whatever Jordan Peterson's 12 rules for life. You know, what is one thing that you could do, that you should do, that would make, you know, you have, I forget the other half of the rule. But anyway, you know, what is, you know, one area where you're really beating up on yourself, or maybe you could beat up on yourself a little bit less, and then just practice it, just try it,
Yep.
kind of see what happens. And then I would say also get a coach of some sort.
Yep.
Because sometimes you need someone who is outside of your brain and objective, who can say, you know, yes, you're right, you really do suck at this, or, you know, you're actually doing pretty well on this, and this is how you move forward, this is how you progress. Because we don't want to love ourselves so much that we delude ourselves into thinking we're perfect and we abandon the search for self-improvement. We need to hold value for ourselves the way we are, but also continue to try to improve, and having a third-party person to kind of set you straight can be super valuable
for sure
as well.
I love that you brought in Jordan Peterson. I absolutely love Jordan Peterson. His first rule, I think also applies to what we're talking about. And he says, clean your room before you criticize the world. And basically what that means is like sort your shit out before you start, you know, criticizing other people, or, you know, blaming other people. And that really speaks to the drive for accountability. But I also think, what you just said is a great place to end. You find a coach. There is somebody out there who has either been in your shoes or has worked with enough people in your shoes that they either have been like, they've walked through the minefield already and they can tell you like where those mines are, or they have watched other clients struggle with the same thing and learned from them. You know, we do coaching, but then we each also have our own coaches. And then we coach each other. So like Leah helps me find my blind spots too. And if you have somebody who can help you see those blind spots, and who can also say, you know, like I just did with Leah, like, you thought you were going to finish last, but you didn't. And also, by the way, you PR'd every single lift. Like, that's an amazing meet that most people would kill for that to happen in an athletic event. And you just need, I think, someone else to see that in you, and then you can start to believe it more in yourself. Yeah. Cool. Why don't you tell them where they can find us?
All right. So we are Revolution Wellness. You could find us on Instagram at Revolution Well PT. You could also find us on our website, www.revolutionwellnesscollective.com. Sorry, that's a lot of words.
So long. It's so long.
And literate people only, I guess. And
spell check.
Yeah, spell check.
Use your spell check.
We're also on YouTube, also Revolution Wellness Collective. We are in person in Milford, New Hampshire on 19 Nashville Street, right next to the library. We've got a sign. And where else can we find us? Is that it?
I think that's about it.
That's about it.
Yeah. And so please, if this message spoke to you, please share it with somebody else. Spread the love, and don't forget to prioritize your protein. And if somebody wants to see you do something cool, just say, hold my protein.
Watch this.